It's 5:37 p.m. and September 17th and 2020, and let's call to order the City of Ann Arbor Public Market Advisory Commission. So Stephanie, could you do the roll call?
Yes. Peter Wolf.
Here.
Lisa Young.
Here.
Helen Chandler.
Here.
All right. So we've got Jeff Namath. We see him, but we can't hear him. So I would assume that that is here. And Holly Parker.
I'm here.
And then we have our guest from CTN that is recording us.
All right, so item C, you should have received the agenda for this agenda. And so I request a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
Looks like he can't hear us either.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh, here he comes. He's connecting to audio.
Yep. Oh, I gotta.
Can you hear
Are
us?
you there, Jeff? Might not be working.
We'll just do hand signs.
Okay.
All right. All right. So we'll move on to item D, first public commentary, agenda items only. Are there any public members in the audience? None
no,
that I
there are not.
All right. Well, seeing none, we will move on. Item E, approval of previous minutes of the previous meeting. So you should have received the minutes from the previous meeting. Any changes, additions people have? Do I hear a motion to approve?
A motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Then it passes. All right. Now moving on to the main event for today, the regular business items, item G. So Stephanie.
All right. Well, I just was gonna, continue our conversation that we were having previously. Not really much has changed. We've had one customer who was sending us photos that they felt that there was a vendor that didn't have their mask on satisfactorily. So we had to follow up with them. That is resolved now, but they actually contacted the mayor, so they did feel that strongly about it. Yeah, so that's pretty much the only thing that's been different in terms of people reacting to our changes. But nothing major beyond that. So, sorry, 1 second.
Jeff, can you hear us?
Yep. Jeff, can you hear us? I don't have any capacity to turn his mic on, so I don't know if he actually has a mic in whatever he's using.
Oh, now it looks like he's got it muted.
Aha! All right.
Jeff, can you unmute your mic?
Unmute yourself. Can you do it?
Oh,
Hi.
there.
Hey!
Can we hear you, Jeff?
Oh.
No.
Can you hear us now? Can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yay!
Oh, now we can.
Yes.
Okay. All right. What did I miss? A lot or?
No.
Nope. No,
You
I was
missed
having
the-
technical difficulties getting everyone's video to work, so we're all in the same boat with technical difficulties today.
All right.
Yeah,
All
we were
right.
just doing the agenda and minutes approval.
Good deal.
All right.
All right. So that's for the COVID related changes and follow up. Is there anything else with the COVID stuff?
Not really. We just have still, like, we've been bringing on just very few vendors based on need. We did have a new mushroom vendor start on Saturday. The reason we brought them on is that was a big need that we had. The great continuity there is they were actually a close family friend with Chris Wright, who was our former mushroom vendor who has passed. So that was really great that it was, you know, very close friends with that person. So, you know, I think it's a perfect person to take their space. And, you know, we're still fitting everyone. We haven't turned anyone away yet. We've been averaging between, you know, 68 and 70 vendors per Saturday market. We've been hovering between 28 and 32 on a Wednesday market. The food trucks have been back on Wednesdays. Yesterday we had Hero or Villain. Next week we're gonna have Simply Spanish, and we've been alternating those two. We did try to reach out to some of our regular food trucks that do the rallies, but there's not as much interest as we thought that there would be, but obviously that's COVID specific. But yeah, so that's pretty much what's been going on our Wednesday markets. Yeah. So I don't know if anyone wanted to chime in, any vendors wanted to add with their experiences about that, how things are going with the market changes. Or not. Yeah, I just really wanted to update you all, just keep the conversation going about what we've been doing. So
yeah, I don't have anything really to say other than we're glad we're still open and doing it, and it's working pretty good under the circumstances, and all the students coming back, you know, to just even keel, which I think we're doing. Yeah.
good. Jeff, do you have any feedback about how things have been going?
It's been going pretty good. I feel like the crowds are still down a little bit, but I mean, that's probably, you know, to be, you know, expected with everything going on.
Great. Well, from some customers, they think the crowds are out of control. Somebody compared it to art fair crowds. So it's all about people's perception, I guess.
Yeah.
It was nice to see all the students last weekend. I was pleased to see that everybody was back, and most people seem like they were being pretty respectful of the rules.
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of people are definitely wearing masks. The only difficulty we have had a little bit is people trying to bring dogs, but we did step up our amount of signage about that, and I think ever since we put more signs up, that really has not been an issue. Because we had to originally sacrifice some of our signs to turn them over into mask signs and COVID signs. But that's pretty much been the major things. Other than that, yeah, most feedback has been very positive.
Helen, quick question. How does the crowds compare to what's happening at Eastern Market?
I think so. This is just perception, and also I don't personally attend Ann Arbor or Eastern, but I talk to all the people that are doing it. So that's the to say first. But like Eastern is at the capacity for how many people they're allowed to let into the market at any given time. So they have had to like regulate how many people can come in, you know? And I mean, I would say all of our markets, the crowds are depressed slightly. So the other thing about Eastern Market, I mean, actually both of those markets, Ann Arbor and Eastern, are very long. So there's like lots of opportunity for customers to spread themselves out. Yeah, that's all I really got.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. With that said, this is not specific to COVID, but I just spoke with some researchers from Michigan State earlier this afternoon, and they are starting a farmers market study in which they do want to talk to some vendors about experiences between different markets. And obviously COVID has come into play and there's going to be some questions. So there will be more information forthcoming about that, but they want to do specific interviews and compensate each vendor for that interview too. So more info forthcoming.
Great. All right. So should we move on to winterization?
Yep, that's all I have for that agenda item. So, winterization. So I've been trying to do a little bit more research the last few times. I'm getting seasick watching Jeff move around. But
Sorry.
It's okay. It's out of the corner of my eye. I'll just have to like cover that panel. Yeah. So anyway, winterization of the market. I have spoken with Josh. He has referred me to Hillary, who was the point person previously on this. We're going to have an official meeting with her and Colin sometime later this month. But I do have a quick update where they're saying it's probably going to be on pause for now because turning it into an indoor space could bring in a lot of other issues that we're not prepared to deal with in terms of having to reduce the amount of people per time. Obviously, it's winter, crowds aren't as large, but I think that's part of it. And then secondly, the budget right now is not necessarily favorable to taking on a big project. That doesn't mean that we can't move forward in conceptualizing and continuing to discuss. But I hate to be the one to bring this news. I know you all got so close to completing it previously. But again, more specific info forthcoming. But that's the only update I really have is that, you know, it doesn't look good to make it indoors. And I'm not sure the budget can support the project at this time. Sorry.
I guess one thing I might advocate for is trying to make sure to track down all the records for what we did before too, because I just to make sure, because it sounds like it's going to get punted to the future, but if we can ideally use that information that we had from the previous stuff, there's a lot of information that was gathered, and I have parts and pieces, but ideally it should reside within the market, and to make sure we've got a big, pretty well documented folder of all that stuff so that when we do come back to it, it's like plans on the shelf. I think that would be a valuable thing.
Yeah, we do. And that's what the meeting with Hillary will be about, because she was the one that was taking the lead in terms of contacting the architects for mock-ups and things like that. So
Yep.
That's what my meeting that is upcoming will be about. And once I have that meeting, I will definitely report back to you all with the details. So.
Well, the other thing too with that is making sure that we keep a record of that for posterity in terms of, you know, there's turnover, and so that when
Yes.
new people come in, it's like, did we ever talk about this? And then it will be like, oh, let's restart over.
Yeah.
And there's
Well,
no
it
reason
is
to-
in our record. It's not that we don't have a copy. It's just a question of where right now. And plus, there's so many other things going on.
Yeah. It might be a winter project to organize that. That
Yeah.
might be a key.
So don't worry. There's records somewhere.
Somewhere.
Just, whether we can leverage them right now, I think is really the problem. I know everyone was really looking forward to it. Someone was asking me, "Oh, we're going to do this winter, right?" And I don't know. Holly, did you have a question?
Yeah, I think I have a comment on a question. So just you probably know this, Stephanie. It's probably super obvious, but one point on the latest plans for winterization that I think actually are helpful. It's a helpful part of the plans for dealing with any winterization that might be possible during COVID, which is that the structure that we were looking at was movable, right? It was like pieces that could be rolled up and down. So that I think the idea was that it could still be open air, and it would still allow for a lot of airflow and ventilation. And I actually think if there were ever a winterization project that was made for COVID circumstances, this was it. So I might just encourage you to push back a little bit on the idea that moving anything to, and it's not actually moving to indoor, it's just moving to protecting from the elements. And it would still allow for complete open air, or at least a great deal of ventilation. So that was just the point and the encouragement that I want to make, because just would hate for this to completely derail that potential. And the other thing is, I wonder about this budget issue, and I don't know, but I was under the impression that there was funding that was raised specifically for the winterization. And so I guess I'm just curious I've never quite understood the budget implications and how that works, and certainly understand that other things might take precedent or take priority, I guess I'm wondering what and if any of the funding is actually set aside specifically for winterization, or if now it's just like back into the city pool, and so it can be repurposed. And I just feel like as the commission, we should be aware of that and keeping an eye on what the funding is and if there are any boundaries around it, and if not, where it goes. Because I think part of our job is to advocate for the market. And so I guess any information you have or can get about the reality of what the budget for the winterization is and what that means, it would be really helpful.
Yeah, and I'm just sharing what they told me specifically when I just got a quick email from Hillary, who had been the point person before. She was the one that brought up being worried about making anything an enclosed space. I mean, I don't know if she used the word indoor, if I just substituted that. But so that was, yeah, so that's just me passing along what they were saying, but I completely hear what you were talking about, and we want to make sure that, you know, it stays at the top of our list. But in all reality, it's probably not going to be occurring in the next couple months. But again, I'm having a meeting with them coming up, and I'll have more specific information to share at that time.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Yep.
And I appreciate Holly's comments about the budget, because we'd been given figures in the past, but it was always unclear how the funds would be allocated. And also, I know Peter asked about in the past if there was a mechanism for fundraising for the farmers market too. So when you're talking to the folks at City Parks, is there a possibility, you know, like a Friends of the Farmers Market, sort of, I don't know if it's an actual nonprofit, Peter probably knows more, but a place to create things where people might be able to donate and how that might be able to happen, if that was something that the city wanted to follow up on.
Gotcha.
I can speak to that a little bit too, because I know that for the two things with the funding, I know is that when the market went from its own organization to the parks, then it ended up bringing in with it a budget that of a balance. It was like, I don't know, 300K, something like that. And that was to be allocated exclusively for the market stuff by the market, and the rest of the budget would come from the general parks fund. And so but that was always very mushy as to exactly how much that would be or where that would come from or how much was available. The other part of it too is that we did go through an exercise a couple of years ago about trying to figure out how to, if people wanted to donate to this or, you know, to make the winterization happen, how could they do that, or could they do that if the people of Ann Arbor wanted to do that? And that it was other markets have done this where they have a not-for-profit that's associated with it, which collects funds for this, what's like a building endowment kind of, and then they shuttle it over once the things come through. And I looked into that about the establishment of that, and there are ways to do it, but it was a very, at least we couldn't find an easy structure within the city that was a parallel for that. And maybe that's I think still valuable, because there were definitely people who were interested in kicking in a chunk of change. And if it was something we actually made and asked for, we might be able to get something there. But that infrastructure still isn't in place. But it definitely, other markets have used that very successfully and as a fundraising mechanism. So.
Yeah, and I know that Josh did say, you know, he thought that the quote that you all were working with before was very reasonable and was doable. So I know that's not the issue. It's just that it's COVID specific budget constraints. And again, I don't know what that looks like yet, but I will have more information forthcoming. And as you're talking, I'm trying to look through our files to see if I can find anything else that's got more details, but not at the moment.
So I guess I have a question.
Yep.
Okay, you guys can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess that raises a good question that I guess I always had and I never asked. Does the market have its own bank account, so to speak? Does it have its own money? Or is it just part of the parks?
I would say it's both. It is part of the parks, but we do have our own budget. Yes.
Okay. All right.
And my understanding with that is too that the account that we have can't ever grow; it can only shrink. Was the agreement that somehow, or that so we can't put more into that somehow because it's like to sunset it out. I guess I'm not sure. At least that was what was told to me a couple of years ago. Which.
Okay. Well, this year is probably, very different in terms of, because we have been actively giving refunds to people for the days that market has been closed. They have also been doing attendance waivers for people that might not be able to do COVID. So I know that in terms of our take this year, obviously we're bringing in a lot less income. People are paying less install fees because they're not using as much space in addition to that. So, and of course, we don't really have many special events that are happening because ordinarily the market is rented out for a lot of different things. That revenue is not coming in this year. The revenue we do have coming in is the artisan market, in addition to our, vendor fees and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's not necessarily that it's being taken into another place within the city. It's that our own budget is not being replenished at the same level as it is ordinarily. But again, that's not to say that there isn't a designated fund. There may be, and that is something I'm hoping to learn when I meet with Hillary in the next couple weeks.
Any other comments on winterization? All right. Item 3, comments, questions, general comments, general questions.
I figured I would throw that out there in case people wanted to raise something. I know it's not in the usual format, but.
Well, then actually, and the related note, then moving on to new business, any non-agenda items that anyone has. Seeing none, we will move on to item J, second public comment. Are there any members of the public? I see none on my interfaces, so.
Yeah, I don't see anyone.
All right, well then we'll do item L, adjournment. So we're hereby adjourned at 5:59. Thank you all.
It was a record. Thank you all for participating, and I'm sorry that I didn't have more information. I was hoping to have it in time for this meeting, but that just did not work out that way.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Much appreciated though.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks.